3 people, all over 60, all dealing with the exact same complaint. The first is a retired bus driver named Gene, 72 years old, from a suburb outside Columbus. Gene has been waking up at 3 in the morning with a sour, acidic burn crawling up his chest. He pops antacids like they're mints. He has a sleeve of them on his nightstand, another roll in his jacket pocket. His doctor ran a scope last year and told him, "Looks fine, just reflux, manage it." Gene manages it. He's been managing it for 11 years now, and it's only getting worse. The second is Carol, 64, a church organist in North Carolina. Carol doesn't get reflux at night. She gets it in the morning. She'll wake up fine, eat a reasonable breakfast, and within 40 minutes, she's bloated to the point where she has to unbutton her slacks. She told her sister it feels like her food just sits there, not moving, not going anywhere, like a stalled car in the middle of an intersection. The third is a man I'll call Walter, 68, retired electrician. Walter doesn't complain about reflux or bloating at all. His issue? Constipation so stubborn it has become the central organizing problem of his week. He plans his outings around it. He avoids restaurants. He carries a private shame about it that he has never once spoken about to his wife of 41 years. 3 different people, 3 different symptoms, 1 shared habit none of them have ever thought to question. Every single one of them sleeps on their right side. Now, I used to think sleeping position was a matter of comfort, full stop. You find the position that lets you fall asleep, and that's the one that's right for you. I would have told you 5 years ago that anyone claiming your sleep posture affects your digestion was selling you something, probably a pillow. I was skeptical in the way that felt rational at the time, the kind of skepticism that says, if it mattered, someone would have told me by now. Nobody told me. I had to find out the hard way, and I had to revise what I thought I knew. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens inside your digestive system based on how you position your body at night, particularly what sleeping on your left side does, and why it matters more after the age of 50 than it ever did before. I'm also going to explain why your doctor probably hasn't mentioned this. Not because it's fringe, not because it's unproven, but because sleep posture falls into that strange gap between disciplines where gastroenterologists assume your sleep specialist covers it, and your sleep specialist assumes your gastroenterologist covers it. And so nobody covers it. I'm Dr. Albert Winslow, and I'll be honest with you. I'm not someone who arrives at conclusions easily. I test things against my own resistance first. If an idea survives that, I bring it to you. This one survived. Your digestive system is not a straight line. You probably already know that intellectually, but most of us still picture it wrong. We imagine food dropping down from the mouth, traveling a more or less vertical path through the body, and exiting at the bottom. Gravity does the work. Simple plumbing. Except it's not simple plumbing. It's more like the plumbing in a house that was renovated 5 times by 5 different contractors who never talk to each other. Your stomach doesn't sit centered in your abdomen. It's offset to the left. Your pancreas tucks behind your stomach at an angle. Your small intestine coils in a way that is genuinely unique to you, like a fingerprint made of tissue. And your large intestine, this is the part that changed my thinking, your large intestine follows a specific asymmetrical path that makes the direction of gravity during sleep far more consequential than I ever would have guessed. Think about the layout. Your ascending colon runs up the right side of your abdomen. Then it makes a sharp turn, the hepatic flexure, just beneath your liver. Then it crosses your body horizontally as the transverse colon. Then it makes another sharp turn, the splenic flexure, on the left side near your spleen. And then it descends down the left side as the descending colon toward the sigmoid colon and ultimately your rectum. When you lie on your right side, you're asking waste material to move against gravity during one of the most critical segments of that journey, the transition from the transverse colon to the descending colon. The splenic flexure, that sharp left side bend, becomes an uphill climb. Waste has to travel upward to get through it. When you lie on your left side, gravity becomes your ally. Material in the transverse colon naturally feeds downward into the descending colon. The splenic flexure becomes a downhill slope instead of a wall to climb. I used to think the body's own peristalsis, the muscular contractions that move food through the gut, was strong enough to override something as minor as sleep posture. And in a 30-year-old, that's largely true. Peristaltic contractions in younger adults are robust, rhythmic, and powerful enough to move contents in any direction, regardless of how you're lying. After 50, that changes. Peristaltic strength declines with age. The smooth muscle of the intestinal wall loses contractile force gradually, and the enteric nervous system, the network of neurons embedded in your gut wall that coordinates those contractions, becomes less responsive. This has been documented extensively. It's one of the primary reasons constipation becomes more prevalent with age, and it's why a factor like gravity, which was once a footnote, becomes a chapter. Anyway, your body at 70 is not doing the same work it did at 35. So the question isn't whether sleep position matters in theory. The question is whether your body, at your age, can still afford to ignore it. Let me get to the stomach itself, because this is where the evidence shifted my own thinking most dramatically. Your stomach has two key openings. At the top, the lower esophageal sphincter, the valve that's supposed to keep stomach acid from washing back up into your esophagus. At the bottom, the pyloric sphincter, the valve that releases partially digested food into your small intestine. When you sleep on your right side, the geometry of your stomach works against you. Your stomach's natural curvature means that right-side sleeping positions the lower esophageal sphincter below the level of gastric acid pooling in your stomach. The acid, following gravity, creeps toward that valve. If the sphincter is even slightly weakened, and after decades of use, it very often is, acid escapes upward into the esophagus. That's your reflux. That's Gene's 3 in the morning fire. When you sleep on your left side, the lower esophageal sphincter sits above the pool of gastric acid. Gravity keeps the acid in the lower curvature of the stomach, away from the valve. The architecture of the organ works with you instead of against you. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Gastroenterology measured this directly. Subjects who slept on their right side after a meal experienced significantly more acid reflux episodes and longer acid exposure times compared to those who slept on their left. The difference was not marginal. It was pronounced. The kind of pronounced that made me go back and reread the paper to make sure I hadn't misunderstood the data. I hadn't. Now, if you're someone who has been managing reflux with medication for years, proton pump inhibitors, H2 blockers, antacids, I want you to consider something. Those medications reduce acid production. They do not fix the mechanical problem. You're essentially turning down the water pressure in a house where the real issue is a leaking pipe joint. The leak is still there. You've just reduced how much water gets through it. And long-term acid suppression carries its own costs. Reduced calcium absorption, increased fracture risk, potential B12 deficiency, and shifts in gut microbiome composition that we are only beginning to understand. What if part of the solution, not all of it, but a real and meaningful part, was as straightforward as which side you lie on? I'm not saying throw away your medication. Don't do that. What I'm saying is that I used to think positional therapy was a folk remedy dressed up in a lab coat. I was wrong. The anatomy supports it. The research supports it. And for a lot of people over 50, this one adjustment at bedtime does more than another pill ever could. Let me talk about gastric emptying because this connects directly to what Carol, our church organist, was experiencing. Your stomach empties its contents into the duodenum through the pyloric sphincter, which sits on the right side of your stomach toward the bottom. When you sleep on your left side, the pyloric opening is positioned upward relative to the stomach contents, which means food stays in the stomach slightly longer, allowing more thorough mixing with digestive enzymes and acid before being released. That sounds counterintuitive. You'd think faster emptying would be better. But premature gastric emptying, where food dumps into the small intestine before it's been adequately broken down, is actually a significant contributor to bloating, gas, and that heavy, undigested feeling Carol described. Right-side sleeping, conversely, allows gravity to push stomach contents toward the pylorus more quickly. In a healthy young gut, this isn't a problem. In an aging digestive system where enzyme production has already declined and stomach acid levels are lower than they were at 40, which is true for most people, despite what acid reflux might make you think, premature emptying means poorly prepared food hitting the small intestine. The small intestine has to work harder. Bacterial fermentation increases. Gas increases. You feel it. Actually, let me say that differently because I don't want to oversimplify this. The relationship between gastric emptying speed and bloating isn't perfectly linear. It depends on what you've eaten, how much, and your individual enzyme profile. But the positional influence is real and measurable. And in the context of age-related digestive slowdown, it becomes one more variable you can actually control. Most of the variables you can't. This one, you can. There's something else happening on your left side at night that most people never hear about, and it involves an organ you probably haven't thought about since your last biology class: your pancreas. The pancreas sits behind your stomach, angled slightly to the left. It produces digestive enzymes: lipase for fats, protease for proteins, amylase for starches, and it releases them through the pancreatic duct into the duodenum. When you sleep on your left side, the pancreas is positioned in a way that supports gravitational drainage of these enzymes into the digestive tract. Think of it like tilting a bottle of sauce so it pours more easily instead of sitting upright and dripping. This matters especially after a late meal. If you ate dinner at 7 and you're lying down by 10, your body is still actively digesting. The efficiency with which your pancreas delivers enzymes to that process is influenced by your position. Left side sleeping doesn't make your pancreas work harder, it makes it work more efficiently. The ingredients get where they need to go. And here's what connects back to Walter, our retired electrician with the constipation he won't talk about. When digestion in the stomach and small intestine is more complete, when food is properly broken down before reaching the large intestine has an easier job. Less undigested material means less water absorption is needed, which means stool consistency improves. Combine that with the gravitational advantage in the descending colon I described earlier, and you have a compounding benefit. Better breakdown upstream, better movement downstream. Walter's problem didn't start in his colon. It started much higher in the system, and his sleep position was quietly making every stage of the process harder. I want to address something directly because you might be thinking it, and I'd rather not pretend you're not. You might be thinking, I've slept on my right side for 40 years, I'm fine. You might be fine. This isn't black and white. Human bodies are remarkably adaptable, and some people have robust enough peristalsis, sphincter tone, and enzyme production that positional disadvantages simply don't register as symptoms. If that's you, I'm not here to fix something that isn't broken. But if you're reading this and you recognize yourself in Jean, Carol, or Walter, even a little, then you owe it to yourself to consider whether a habit you've never questioned might be quietly undermining your comfort. I think about this like foundation settling in a house. For the first 30 years, the cracks are invisible. The house looks fine, the doors close, the floors feel level, but the settling is happening, slowly, every year. And then one winter, maybe the winter you turn 62, maybe 67, a door starts sticking. A crack appears in the plaster above the bedroom window. The foundation didn't suddenly fail, it's been shifting for decades. Your sleep position is like that. The effects are cumulative, and they compound with every other age-related change that's happening in your digestive system simultaneously. So how do you make the switch if you're not naturally a left-side sleeper? This is practical, and I want to be honest, it's not effortless. You spent decades building a postural habit. Your body has a preference, and it will resist change the way it resists any change. A few things that actually help, based on what I've seen work. Place a body pillow behind your back when you lie on your left side. This creates a physical barrier that prevents you from unconsciously rolling onto your back or your right side during the night. Your sleeping body takes the path of least resistance. Make the path of least resistance the left side. If you have shoulder pain on your left side, and this is common, especially with rotator cuff issues or arthritis, use a pillow between your knees and another thin one under your left arm to reduce joint compression. The goal is to make the position sustainable, not painful. Trading digestive improvement for shoulder misery isn't a trade worth making. Start with the first part of the night only. Fall asleep on your left side. If you wake up at 2 in the morning on your right, don't stress about it. The most significant digestive window is the first 3 to 4 hours of sleep, when post-dinner digestion is most active. Prioritize that window. The rest of the night, let your body do what it does. Elevate the head of your bed by 4 to 6 inches if reflux is your primary concern. This doesn't replace left side sleeping, it complements it. The combination of left side positioning and slight incline creates the most favorable geometry for keeping acid where it belongs. And eat your last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before lying down. I know you've heard this before. I know it's one of those pieces of advice that feels too basic to matter. But positional therapy works best when your stomach isn't processing a full meal. Give your body a head start before you ask gravity to help. One more thing I want to mention, because it's something I initially dismissed and later came to respect. Your lymphatic system, the network that drains waste products and toxins from tissues, has a primary drainage point on the left side of your body. The thoracic duct, your body's largest lymphatic vessel, drains into the left subclavian vein near your left collarbone. There is a theoretical basis, and I want to be precise here because the research on this is still evolving. A theoretical basis for the idea that left side sleeping supports lymphatic drainage and the body's natural detoxification processes during sleep. I'm not going to overstate this. The evidence is not at the same level as the gastric reflux data or the colonic transit data. But the anatomical logic holds, and several integrative medicine practitioners whose judgment I trust have found clinical relevance in it. I include it because I believe in telling you what I know, what I suspect, and being transparent about the difference between the two. This is where I am right now with this topic. I arrived here reluctantly. I arrived here by being wrong first and then being willing to change my mind. That's the only way I know how to do this with integrity. Let me bring us back to Gene, Carol, and Walter. Gene tried left side sleeping after his wife heard about it at a wellness seminar he would have rolled his eyes at. Within 3 weeks, his nighttime reflux episodes dropped from almost nightly to once or twice a week. He didn't stop his medication immediately. He talked to his doctor first. But he told me, his exact words, "I feel like I'm not fighting my own body anymore." Carol started sleeping on her left side and adjusted her dinner time from 7:30 to 6. The morning bloating didn't vanish, but it diminished. Enough that she stopped dreading breakfast. Enough that she wore her normal clothes to church again last Easter without discomfort. Walter was the hardest sell. He didn't believe any of it. He's a man who wired buildings for a living. He respects circuits and systems and things you can measure with a meter. But his wife bought a body pillow, put it on his side of the bed, and told him to try for 2 weeks. He did. His words: "I don't understand why it works, but something moved that wasn't moving before." That's not a clinical trial, that's 3 people. But those 3 people represent a pattern I've seen repeated so many times that I can no longer call it coincidence with a straight face. Your body is architecture. It has walls and valves and chambers and drainage pathways that were designed with a specific orientation in mind. When you sleep, you're not shutting that architecture down. You're putting it in a maintenance mode that depends on position more than most of us ever realize. After 50, the tolerances in that architecture get tighter. The margins get thinner. The things you could get away with at 35 start showing up as symptoms at 60. Left side sleeping isn't a cure-all. I'll probably lose some credibility with the people who want me to say it is, but it isn't. It's one piece, one foundational piece of a larger picture that includes what you eat, when you eat, how you move, and how seriously you take the signals your body sends you. But it is a piece you can put in place tonight. So tonight, before you turn off the light, ask yourself a question you've probably never asked. Which side am I lying on, and what is it costing me? You might not know the answer yet, but your body does.